4 common mistakes that you make before race day and how to fix them. Hi, I'm Colette and I'm the Run Recovery Coach, and I am here today to talk to you about the top 4 common mistakes that you make right before you practice, before you do a race for running. I love running. I love races, especially because they really push you and they get you to feel amazing, like you've accomplished something that's really hard, and you get this great sense of achievement from it. So what we're going to talk about today is these 4 common mistakes that people make right before a race, and it's easily done because everybody goes through this, and for some reason we always think like, oh, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that, this, that, and the other. The first one that I want to go into is about your footwear. Okay, so the first thing you don't want to change before race day is your shoes. Now, I know we all love a new pair of trainers. You especially want to look well turned out for your race, but I know a lot of runners know that you don't switch a pair of shoes right before a race, but it's so important before a race because there's a few things that are happening with your feet at that time. I have a close kind of like a friend of ours who actually did this. He's an ultra marathon runner and got the excitement of having new shoes. He was running an ultra trail run at the time, and a few days before his race he had gotten a new pair of shoes, and I think maybe he'd done one or two shorter runs on these shoes. He did it and the race itself was over the course of 5 days. Now the thing about this is that the best intentions that he had to run this race, the thing that was difficult is that he did okay on day 1, was in pain, first of all, because your feet have to adjust and mold into the new shoes. But what ended up happening, and let this be a reality call, a wake-up check for all of us, is that basically he had to stop the race on day 4 out of day 5. He had blisters upon blisters upon blisters. His feet were broken. His body was literally shutting down and wasn't letting him go any further. But what he did is he actually caused himself long-term damage and completely destroyed the pad, because on the bottom of our feet, it's like we have these pads on our feet and you can actually wear them down. And if you completely wear them down, it's not something that'll grow back with our bodies and the way that they work. So he fully kind of like damaged himself in that case, and hurt himself for the long run, so he wasn't able to carry on. So what do you do about that? I mean, the first thing you want to do is new shoes are fine, you just have to get them within the right portion of time. So the right portion of time really is you should not be introducing a new pair of shoes any later than probably like 3 weeks before the race, depending on the distance of the race and stuff like that. If you want to play it safe, do a month to 6 weeks beforehand, so you allow yourself to kind of cross over between the old shoe and the new shoe, and the new shoes start building up the run slowly over, and don't use them on your super long run the first time you wear them. I've done that before. I remember, oh gosh, it wasn't that long ago, and actually it put me out for about 6 weeks because I had what was called a niggle. So I wore my new trail shoes out. It wasn't for a race, but you get a little bit carried away. I went out for maybe like a 4-miler, and I was feeling great in these new shoes, and it's easily done. And I was going, and I just thought, oh, I'm just gonna make it a little bit of a longer loop. Anyway, I ended up going about 9-10 miles before I knew it, and then I was back, and I got some major pain in my feet, and in the ball of my foot basically, and kind of when I was bending my foot back and forth, it was just too much for it. And being the way that I am, being the recovery coach, I was doing all the appropriate things over the next couple of weeks, and I didn't do any more long runs on it. But it even just goes to show, like, best of intentions, you can damage yourself with a new pair of shoes. So that's the first one. The other thing is like, you should be using those new shoes. You should be comfortable in them in your second to last run before the race, the second to last long run before the race, I should say. So really give yourself enough time to work up. And I would even say, even if your shoes are falling to bits, you know, they're almost better off in your foot, because your foot has adapted to them over time. And yeah, it's always a tough one to call, I know, but just promise me that you won't go out on day one and you know, I'm starting a race the next day, I'm gonna look great in my new flashy trainers. Don't do it, guys, because you will suffer. And I know too many people that have gotten hurt through that. So that is number one. Common mistake number two is, you'll hear a lot of don'ts here, but don't change your running style right before the race. It is not time to try out a new posture or technique or really kind of like push yourself in a different way. You need to go with what your body's adapted to, what you're comfortable with. Basically what you need to know is that, you know, and do try this out before a race, but you find that you strain muscles that you didn't even know you had during a race, and that you can really have a hard time adjusting to any new techniques, and that is like the fastest way to injury, basically. But if you do want to try something and you don't have a race coming up, to try little bits of a time, you want to, the correct running form is to kind of feel like you're being lifted up, have your chin up, not like up, but like have your chin up, because a lot of us run like this. I know I do a lot of the time. Chin up. Feel like you're almost being pulled from strings, like a marionette, lifting that head up. Your hips tilted forwards, your shoulders relaxed and rolled back, and you want to have your arms kind of like loosely touching, almost like in a yoga pose, like from my yoga path, loosely cupping and touching your fingertips, and you're kind of like running with a relaxed kind of a 90-degree angle. And there's a lot to say about with the legs and stuff, but I quite like that. Always the hips and everything that will just propel you and pull you forward. So as long as you're not doing a race anytime soon, you can go ahead and try that. But it will strain different muscles if you're trying to do this consistently for a whole race, and is when you're pushing yourself. So don't worry about that. And moving on to number three. So number three, don't increase your distance, your terrain, your time, or speed by more than 10 to 15% at a time. So that's why when you see, I remember, I remember not that long ago. Well, no. It was when I probably picked up running again. I went out with a group of friends, some girlfriends, and I hadn't been running for ages. And I remember thinking, well, it's like, oh, I get to go out with some friends and try running again. And it's great being around other people and having a good time. Well, they were seasoned runners and they'd been running for a long time, the same amount of time, same distances and stuff for weeks and weeks and weeks. And for somebody who had not run for a long time after having a kid, I was like, yeah, I'll go out and smash 6 miles, no big deal. So I go and I run with them, and of course I'm able to do it. We run it, it's great. Get to the end of the run and I'm feeling good of being with other people. And then the fallout comes, and it's like, I have a calf problem, or I have a knee problem. I can't remember what it was at that particular example, and sometimes I get problems with my feet as well. And so I just remember, you feel great in the moment, but I heed you with caution, or take caution, is just to make sure that you're not pushing yourself beyond your means. That's why run training plans are in place for races, and why they have you build up slowly in terms of intensity, the distance you're doing, the time, and the terrain. And if you do about 10% week on week, you should be fine. But if you do much more than that, that is like the fastest way to injury. So just little techniques and tactics for that. Either you go out on your own as you're increasing. You can join a group, but just make sure that the group is fitting into your speed. And yeah, so that's great in terms of not increasing that. And then as I move on to the fourth thing, the last one is about fueling. So don't try any new gels, foods, or types of fueling techniques, either on race day or right before the race day. I talked about this not too long ago, but like, when you go out on a race, you're all prepared. You've packed the night before, and you've got your gel and your gummies and your chewy bar and all the different things you got packed all over your place. Not the stuff that you do normally during your training runs necessarily, but you're all raring and ready to go. And then you're running on your race and you feel great, and then you hit what I call a bit of a wall, right? So you hit the wall. And you get out, you're like, oh, right, okay, I'll have my gel, and I rip it off, and you take it. It's like, oh my God, I think I'm going to be sick. I feel awful, because that happens to the best of us, depending on whether it's a bar or a gel or certain electrolyte drinks, gummies. It can have an adverse effect. Now, under normal circumstances, these things should help you and should give you the boost that you want and you need. But what I would say to do from a tactical point of view is to make sure you're practicing these fueling techniques and types leading up to the race. A good couple weeks beforehand is all right in terms of practicing that, and you can practice it on some of your last longer runs in your training plan, and then that'll give you the ability to test out how quickly you like to take the fueling type stuff, and how not just how quickly, but like what types of stuff work for your body, what doesn't work for your body, so that on race day, you're not like hunching over because you've got cramp or you feel like you're going to be sick, that you can just focus on being the best that you can be and not tripping up. So in summary, number 5 is just saying, basically, don't experiment with anything new on race day or right before race day. Just try and keep it steady. Your body is comfortable with what you know. You've been doing a great job preparing up until your race. Just don't introduce any new elements is basically the summary. So I hope that was helpful. Go ahead. I'm doing a live series every day in the week, where around 12 noon in the UK, earlier in the US, depending on what your time zone is, but lunchtime in the UK. And I'm just sharing as much stuff as I can about run recovery, because that's what I'm all about. I'm on a mission to make sure people start doing run recovery just like the professionals do, but they don't talk about it that much, right? So I want the normal person to make sure that they're recovering the best that they can. You know, we put so much energy and time into preparing for our races. We always neglect and forget about what happens after the race. So let's start preparing together, and let's start creating a movement around getting people to recover and focusing on that run recovery. So go ahead, if you want to know more or learn more, I've got a YouTube channel. I am a run recovery coach on YouTube. Also, my name is Colette Peratt, and I am on Instagram, and I've got the Run Recovery Secrets podcast as well, where you can find on your local podcast provider. So just go ahead and follow me, because I'm going to be giving out lots of great tips and keeping us all healthy and strong and injury free for our races. Now, join me next week on Monday when I talk about, I'm excited, what your body is screaming for after a race and how not to cheat yourself of it. So join me on Monday to get that, and I will see you then. Take care. Bye.